Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. It is an honor to rise virtually in this House and speak on the speech from the throne, a speech that I have to say I found inspiring and poignant, given the state that we are in, the kind of the stage that we're in the pandemic. And you know, I've just really been reflecting on the incredible journey that we've been on in this past more than a year now, as we continue to confront an absolutely unprecedented challenge to all of us in our communities in British Columbia, across Canada, across the world. And I really wanted to start by reflecting on some of the content and the words that our Lieutenant Governor had around the importance of investing in people and the importance in building strong communities, because really I think that is at the heart of what our government is about. It is, I think, what motivates us all. I mean, not just in our government, but everyone in this House is dedicated to ensuring that we get up and represent our communities to the best of our ability every single day. And so I wanted to start by giving thanks to my community of New Westminster and to the people who elected me. I can't really express actually the honor and privilege that I feel in representing such a thriving, resilient community. It's a community on the banks of the mighty Fraser River that is on the traditional territory of the Kakite First Nation. And I know I've spoken in this House before about the importance of that sort of territorial acknowledgement, but what is particularly meaningful about that acknowledgement for me is kind of in the context of our government's commitment to reconciliation, is that the Kakite Nation is a nation without land, without a land base. And it's a nation that in fact was almost extinguished from the federal records as being in existence because it didn't have a land base and because there had been a rupture. I mean, one of the impacts of colonialism was a complete rupture of the traditional leadership for the Kakite peoples, and it took considerable work to sort of rebuild that and ensure that we didn't lose that important heritage and that the Kakite people did not lose that important status. And so it's been a real journey, I think, for our community to work with and learn about and build a relationship with the Kakite Nation. And so I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to reflect on that in the context of our government's commitment to reconciliation. And I also want to, just in the spirit of giving thanks in reflection on the throne speech, but also just, you know, thinking about the journey we've been on for this past more than a year, I really want to thank the people who support the work of the MLA of me in the community. We have a terrific staff who is working virtually in New Westminster as we get our constituency office settled, and I'm very grateful to have Amy Ryder and Erica Williams working in our constituency office, and to have had the wise counsel of Kiefer Pellick as constituency assistant, sort of from the previous MLA to my term, and also grateful that Kiefer had stayed with New Westminster as now is working as my executive assistant in my ministry office. And I just to say that, you know, the work of responding to and being that important link to people in the community is an absolutely critical role. And I just want to shout out to all of the constituency assistants staffing all of the MLA offices across the province, because the work that you do is very important to community building in every single community across the province. And the work that we are doing in government and in my office in the ministry really could not be accomplished without the excellent staff that we have supporting what I do here. And I would just like to take the opportunity to thank Veronica Harrison and Melissa Ferrance, who were the ministerial assistants in this office when I started, and without whom I could not have managed getting through the first couple of months of this role. And of course, we were supported at that time in this office by Lisa Grant and Nicole Hansen, and they've all moved on to different roles in different offices within government. And we now have a great team with Brianna Viella and Leah Walters and Will Beal, Anna Lindsay, and Kiefer, as I mentioned. And I'm very grateful for the team that we have that is so dedicated to the work that we do on education in this office. And I will say too that I think we all British Columbians owe a real debt of gratitude to the public service for the dedication of public servants to ensuring that British Columbians get the services and advice and consideration, policy consideration that they that they need. And I think that our public service has been particularly been called upon in particularly difficult ways in these challenging times to step up to helping government navigate this unprecedented situation that we are in. And likewise, I know many of my colleagues many of you have already sung the praises of our healthcare workers, first responders, everyone who is on the front lines, protecting British Columbians, supporting us. Of course, I am eternally grateful to the work that education workers do, the teachers, the educational assistants, the clerical workers and custodians, principals and vice principals, superintendents, trustees, and of course, parents and kids who are all working so hard to keep our education system going, to keep our schools open and safe. We owe them a debt of gratitude as well. And I will say to all workers, essential workers, all workers who have contributed to making sure that we can buy food, that we can get gas when we need it, that our transit system is operating. There is just really no part of our society that isn't sort of run by people who often do work that's unsung and unrecognized. And I think that has been a real, lesson of this pandemic is the degree to which we all rely on each other. And we have seen, I think, many acts of social solidarity throughout the course of this pandemic. And even though I know that at this point, we are all very tired, everybody is very tired. We are so tired of together alone, or alone together, apart together. The phrase, we miss each other, we miss our families. And I just was reflecting on this past weekend, spending some distance time with some family who are in my bubble, but very much longing for an ability to do that in a more normal way, as we all are. And I think that we are so close to the finish line. But I've been reflecting, on the incredible resilience of our communities, and reflecting on the resilience of New Westminster in particular. I wanted to just talk a little bit about some of the incredible acts of solidarity and pivoting and resilience that I've seen in New Westminster, whether it's the small business community in New Westminster, very well advocated for by groups like the Downtown Business Improvement Association. We also have the Uptown Business Improvement Association and the local Chamber of Commerce, who have all do just a remarkable job advocating for businesses, pulling them together, figuring out ways to pivot, to get information out to businesses, and ways to engage the community. We have a thriving restaurant scene in New Westminster, and there is so much support in the efforts of restaurants to provide services to the community safely. And that has been really, really heartening to see. And I wanted to talk too about the changing demographics in New Westminster. It's a community where there are many more parents and young families coming to settle in New Westminster. And so really important organizations like New West Family Place they play a fundamental role in supporting young families and young children in our community. And that is a very socially engaged and socially interactive kind of work that they do. And so when the pandemic hit and physical distancing rules went in place, they had to pivot so quickly to figure out how to provide services and support to families at a time when it was even more important, given the kind of isolation that many families were having to endure at the time. And so their online engagement process skyrocketed, and they've reached more than 20,000 people who are engaging each month for their online circle times, their one-to-one Zoom playdates, their morning check-ins. They organize chats with child development experts. They have monthly birthday party opportunities for kids, baby singing and baby song sessions for families, science and crafting and fun features. And these kinds of online opportunities are a really innovative way to connect families and kids, and have been really successful. They've also had to pivot to providing a lot of one-on-one support for families, including mental health supports and parent coaching, coordinating food hampers and donations, helping families figure out how to navigate applications for services that they might need. Helping families with supported referrals each month for community services. They also provide a toy lending library in partnership with the New Westminster Library. They provide toys and the structure, and they've worked out a system where this can all be done in a safe way, physically distanced. There's a pickup and a drop-off. They organize monthly free family fun packs that provide hundreds of early childhood development play packs that they provide to families who need them, and they've arranged, again, a safe pickup at local community centers. They really provide important programming for young children 0 to 6, and I've been able to go to some of their outdoor play dates. They ran outdoor play sessions for families, traveling to different parks in different playgrounds across New Westminster, all throughout the pandemic, through the summer, through the fall, in those rainy, snowy days. In the winter, there were very few sessions that they actually canceled. And I can tell you that parents showed up, and grandparents showed up with their young ones, because that kind of an outlet and that kind of accessing that kind of community is so incredibly important to families. So I just, the resilience by groups like Family Services, by groups like the Senior Services Society as well, who also support seniors in our community and had to pivot to providing services online to address seniors' isolation in our community. Century House as well, providing services to seniors. And New Westminster has a thriving art scene. And so when we could no longer have the weekly arts and crafts markets down at the New Westminster Quay, or have the New Westminster Art Crawl, the New West Arts Council pivoted to provide other ways to support artists and crafters in our community. And I'm really pleased to say that there are a number of arts organizations that have received grants from our Arts and Culture Resilience Supplement, including the Arts Council of New West, the Massey Theatre Society, the New West Museum and Archives, Patrick Street Production Society, the Savage Production Society, and it's just a real testament to how creative that sector is, that they still have found ways to provide outlets for artists to show their work and for artists to be able to sell their work.
Noting the hour, Minister. Noting the hour.
Noting the hour. Noting the hour, Mr. Speaker. I reserve my place to continue at the next sitting and move adjournment of the debate.
Recognizing the Minister of Education.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Again, it's a pleasure to resume my response to the Thone speech. And I think when I left off yesterday, I was singing the praises of my community of New Westminster and some of the really important organizations and people who work to make that community such a thriving, resilient place. And I wanted to also mention important organizations such as the Centre for African Immigrants, who have been the recipient of an important grant as part of the BC Multiculturalism Grants to work to tackle anti-Black racism. And the centre was formed in 2003 with the goal of supporting visible minorities with ethnocultural barriers and assisting them in settlement, adjustment and integration processes. And I think the work that they do in our community is important and a real example of the way in which we are increasingly valuing diversity and inclusion. I wanted to also note that, again, along the vein too of the work that our government has committed to and that was outlined in the Thone speech around anti-racism, the Purpose Society, also based in New Westminster, another very important part of the fabric of our community. And the Purpose Society provides social, health and education programs across the Lower Mainland. And they've received also a grant to further their community-based anti-racism work through the Resilience Anti-Racism Network. And this work is really, I think, foundational to the values that are expressed in the Thone speech about how we build strong and resilient communities. Other organizations as well, like the Last Door Recovery Society and the Lookout Society, are providing very important supports to vulnerable people in our community, and they have been called on to step up during this pandemic to protect vulnerable people, and they have done so with compassion, with dedication, with commitment, and we all, I think, in our community owe them a debt of gratitude. So it really is these kinds of values around putting people first, making strong investments in the supports and services that people need, recognizing and taking steps to support diversity, equity, inclusion, and reconciliation, ensuring that we are supporting people to live with dignity, no matter what their circumstances, and in fact working hard and fighting every day to change and improve those circumstances. Those are the key ingredients to building strong communities. That is how we nourish communities, and that is where community resilience comes from. These elements, investing in healthcare and education, childcare, skills training for workers to take up the jobs that will be created as we build a green economy, these are the values and actions that our government has committed to. And they're the values that are reflected in the Thone speech. And I think that, you know, in this time, we reflect on what is the role of government coming out of and helping to navigate the scope of a global pandemic, an event that we had never anticipated any of us would be living through. And the role in government, as we are finding, is critically important in supporting communities, in nourishing communities, in ensuring that people have the services, the supports that they need. And our government has been and will continue to be absolutely committed to ensuring that, that British Columbians have the services and supports that they need. I want to take a moment now just to turn to specifically the portfolio that I have as the role of Minister of Education. And I have to say, I mean, it is such an incredible privilege to serve in this position and to be really an advocate for British Columbia kids and for the people who are working in our education system. We have indeed an excellent education system by many measures. But of course, we also have some challenges that we need to address. And we have laid out in our government program and through the values and principles we have articulated in the Throne speech, a path forward. I have to say that kids in particular, I think, have been doing a remarkable job during this pandemic. And I think that this generation of children will, of course, be marked by their experience of the pandemic for a lifetime. They have had to pivot suddenly to online learning in some cases. They have had to change how they interact with their friends. And we have seen, across the education system, incredible work as done in order to respond to this unprecedented time. And we've witnessed across so many parts of our society, and particularly in education, just remarkable feats of compassion and resilience, and as both workers and families and students have pivoted. When we closed schools last spring as the pandemic, at the start of the pandemic, we know that had significant consequences in terms of the challenges that it posed for both for students and for everybody, and for parents and for everybody across our education system. And in a report that was produced by the BC CDC in September examining this period, they looked very closely at the impact of this period on kids, and what they identified were an increase in the sense of isolation, increase in mental health concerns, difficulties adapting to online learning, the fact that kids were missing their teachers and those social connections, and also the very real concern that this pandemic, as we know, has impacted people and communities in different ways. There are vulnerable communities, kids from living in vulnerable communities have been disproportionately impacted in negative ways by this pandemic. And that is why our government made it a really clear commitment, following the advice of our provincial health officials, that really keeping our schools open was critical, not only to maintain the connection to learning that is so important for children, but also to ensure that kids retained a connection to the mental health supports they have access to in schools, to the meal programs, to all of the other services that support a child as a whole individual. Because it's not as though kids are just only students when they show up at the door of the school, and then they leave the rest of their life behind them, and they come in and they're just a student. They bring their whole lives with them, and some of those lives are challenging. And school is a refuge and an important source of supports. And we have prioritized maintaining those critical supports. And I'm I know that it has been very, very hard. And there have been so many incredible acts of support from principals and teachers, ensuring that kids who were not in school retained had groceries, ensuring that they're working to maintain those connections. And it has it has been tremendously humbling to witness the degree of compassion and commitment and effort that has gone into keeping schools going, and we owe a significant debt of gratitude to all of those on the front lines in our education system for making it work. I think that, you know, we're at a point, I know we're at a very challenging point in the pandemic right now, but we are, of course, starting to turn our thoughts to what do things look like in September as we build back? And I think there's, you know we have a challenging few weeks, several weeks to get through at this point in the pandemic, but we know that there's light on the horizon. And so when we are planning for September and we think about what is September going to look like, we certainly are hoping that that's going to look much more like a regular September for kids across our schools. And when I look at the way in which the values of our government are reflected in the mandate that has been set out for our education system, the values that are reflected in the Thone speech. We are working now on developing an anti-racism strategy for education. We are working with Indigenous rights holders on improving outcomes for Indigenous children. We are increasing the presence and contributing to and fostering the revitalization of Indigenous languages, which are critical parts of our government's commitment to reconciliation. We are working on developing on the ground in the school integrated mental health teams to support the mental health of children, both and have a strategy, mental health in school strategy that is about supporting students and also adults in our school system. And of course, we are going to bring our child care system into our education system and connect up those two very important elements of learning, early childhood learning with education, and build build the kind of childcare system in this province that we know British Columbians need and that will be fundamental to our recovery. We are building on the success of the work that we did in the previous term of this government, in which we hired 4,200 teachers, including 700 special education teachers, where we invested significant resources in not only improving the staffing in our schools, but improving the services in our schools. And I have to say that we also, I think this is one of the most significant elements of what we're doing is the investments in capital dollars and in infrastructure. Infrastructure that is built by and owned by British Columbians, in which to build a modern education environment in which kids can learn. And I've had a chance to tour the new high school in my own community of New Westminster, and I have to tell you, it is such a remarkably different environment than the high school that I went to, or that many of us went to. It is so open and light and designed around the principles of team learning. And I think about the kinds of competency and skills that kids are going to learn in those environments, and how the kinds of contributions that they're going to make, having gone through a modern education system, the kinds of contributions that they'll make to our society. And it makes me feel very hopeful. I have to say, extremely hopeful. The work that we are doing on anti-racism in the sector is critical, on reconciliation. All of those elements also are critical to building to building and imparting a sense of real empathy and compassion in kids. And I think that one of the most exciting elements of the work that we're doing around childcare is building all of those values and principles into early childhood learning right from the very beginning, and then into, as kids move into elementary school. And I just think we are going to see such incredible fruits across society of those investments that we are making, both in improving the operational side, in the content and quality and empathy and compassion in our system, as well as improving the actual places that kids are learning in. So I'm deeply privileged, feel deeply privileged to be part of that work, and to have an opportunity to speak to and be part of a government that is making such incredible contributions to the health and well-being of our society. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.